Hello, good morning and welcome to UWS News. I'm Carla Basu and here are your top stories for Monday 29th of April. According to the Office of National Statistics, alcohol-related deaths in Scotland have hit a record high. UWS reporter Lauren Petrie has more.
The figures revealed that more than 1,200 Scots died directly due to alcohol in 2022, up 25% from pre-pandemic numbers. These new figures confirm that despite the life-saving impact of minimum unit pricing, Scotland remains in the grip of an alcohol emergency. Policy and Research Manager Nicola Merrin, who works at Alcohol Focus Scotland, spoke to us about the impact that alcohol is having on Scotland.
Well, we've always been drinking too much in Scotland anyway, and the pandemic has obviously accelerated those habits for people who are drinking more. Most people in Scotland drink, and actually 1 in 4 of us are drinking at levels that put our health at risk. That's over 14 units of alcohol per week. And many of us aren't really aware of how much we're drinking.
Changes to drinking patterns during the COVID-19 pandemic has sadly become embedded and represent a ticking time bomb of alcohol-related illness and deaths for our already overstretched NHS. With alcohol deaths hitting their highest level since 2008 in Scotland and people accessing alcohol treatment in Scotland declining by 40% over the last 10 years, treatment and recovery support needs to be improved. I spoke to adult nursing students Emily and Melissa about what it is like to work in the NHS during this time.
I don't really drink or go on nights out, so personally it doesn't really affect me at all. But I really think it's a beneficial thing, especially with the degree we're doing. You know, when we go on placement, there's a very high number of people that are experiencing withdrawal from alcohol, and it's really difficult to watch.
But it's very sad, like when you see things like that and you just think these people are probably coming from a background where they maybe don't have as much money and this is what they're relying on, and then if these prices go up, is it going to help or is it going to, you know what I mean? You just think of all of it, is it going to help or is it going to disadvantage them?
The Scottish Government is determined to do all it can to reduce alcohol-related harm. Following the consultation that concluded last year, targeted restrictions on alcohol marketing is being considered. Lauren Petrie, UWS News.
Joining me now in the studio with more on this story is Lauren Petrie. Lauren, why are alcohol-related deaths in Scotland continuing to rise?
Well, Carla, one of the main reasons is because of the pandemic and how that affected our drinking habits. People started to drink more at home because of the closure of pubs and lack of services. And for people who were drinking heavily already, this increased dramatically, which has led to the 25% increase of alcohol-related deaths over the last 5 years.
Now, we know that the Scottish Government has approved plans to continue the minimum unit pricing and increase it from 50 pence to 65 pence. Will this have an impact on the death toll?
Well, we know the minimum unit pricing has already influenced that rise. We've seen a lower rise in Scotland than we would have if the policy had not been in place. It's estimated we've seen 13.4% fewer deaths in Scotland because of the pricing. I still think we're going to see a rise in the future, and that means we need to take much more action and not just rely on this one policy alone to do the job.
So what steps are being taken?
Well, Alcohol Focus Scotland, who I spoke to along with other organisations, has called for an emergency response from the Scottish Government, despite them saying it was a public health emergency back in 2021, and yet 3 years later we still haven't seen that response. We know that over the last 10 years there's been a 40% decrease of people getting treatment for alcohol addiction. This needs to be revisited and dealt with by the Scottish Government in order to ensure we're doing everything we can to address this problem as well as the people affected by it.
Thanks for that, Lauren. Now it's time for more of today's top stories. As many as 50 bars across Scotland are said to be facing closures due to the minimum unit pricing of alcohol increased from 50 pence to 65 pence by the Scottish Government. Although research conducted by Public Health Scotland had estimated that the minimum unit pricing had reduced alcohol-related deaths by 13.4%, several pub owners have identified the policy as one of the main reasons for their business remaining closed on quieter days in order to save money on utility bills. The NHS is calling for anyone eligible for a cervical screening to come forward for a potentially life-saving appointment, after studies showed that around 4.6 million women in the UK will miss their latest test every year. Over 300 women have been diagnosed with cervical cancer in the past 12 months in Scotland. Vicky Riddler, who was diagnosed with the illness in 2018, is urging anyone who is over the age of 25 to receive their smear test.
For a couple of minutes of feeling uncomfortable, it's a couple of years that you're going to be feeling so proud of yourself that you've actually went there, because this changed for me in 9 months. That's what's really scary about it when I look back, because had it been the length of time, or had I not went, then what would have happened?
The number of potholes on Scotland's roads has soared by nearly 50% in just 1 year, and over 450,000 potholes have been recorded by Scottish authorities since 2018. According to new reports, Scotland has been labelled as the worst in the UK for potholes, with members of the public calling for the Scottish Government to implement more funding to refurbish Scotland's roads. That's all we've got time for today. To stay up to date with more local and national news, visit uwsnewsroom.com or follow us on Facebook at UWS Newsroom. I'm Carla Basu, and I'll see you again soon.
Scottish football is truly a unique product, but there are certainly some aspects which prevent Scottish football from ultimately maximising its potential. It could be argued that the primary hindrance that Scottish football faces is the current SPFL pyramid structure.
The Scottish Premiership is the highest division of football in Scotland. After a merger of the Scottish Premier League and the Scottish Football League, the new top tier was established in 2013 and consists of the best 12 teams in the country. The league, formerly known as the First Division, is the Scottish Championship, the second highest division of football in Scotland. Unlike the Premiership, the league consists of the next best 10 teams as opposed to the top 12. The third tier is called League One, which used to be called Division 2, and, like the Championship, it also consists of 10 teams. And the final 10 teams of the 42 SPFL clubs play in League 2, formerly known as Division 3.
East Kilbride is the largest town in Scotland to have never had a team compete in the Scottish Professional Football League. The two-time Lowland League champions East Kilbride FC have lost out in the playoffs to both Cowdenbeath on penalties and Cove Rangers previously. Manager Mick Kennedy believes that it's only a matter of time before EK are amongst the top 42 clubs in the country and would love to be the man to ultimately see them over the line.
I think one of the challenges for any sustainable model in this country is a fan base. I think the bigger the fan base you can get, the easier it is to try and grow the club organically. I think obviously we were situated 85,000 people, it's a massive town, but ultimately to grow that you need to bring success. And I think if we can bring success and we can implement that style and philosophy that myself and the staff believe in, then hopefully you can start to bring more of those people out their houses and here on a Saturday. But ultimately that only happens with being successful. And that's the challenge for myself here, is to try and bring that success to the club. And I think if we can do that, we can certainly grow the fan base. But ultimately come down to winning games.
Despite craving success for the Kilby, Kennedy believes that the current SPFL setup is flawed, primarily due to every club acting within their own self-interest and voters having their say.
I think everybody outside looking inwardly would agree that it's probably not the best setup when you're trying to progress through the leagues. I think there's also probably a broad agreement within the league as well that requires a degree of restructuring. The problem is because of the voting structure within the country, it's very difficult to drive any kind of change, but I think for the game to modernise itself and progress, then there needs to be some kind of restructure of some degree, but whether that will happen or not will be very, very difficult. But from my own personal perspective and opinion, no, I don't think it's best for a functioning competitive pyramid, and I also don't think it's best for football in this country. The positive thing is seeing clubs like Edinburgh, Kelty, Cove progress through. Spartans got up this year, and I think Bonnyrigg the year before, and I think what you've seen is they've all managed to stabilise themselves and progress through, so there is real progressive, ambitious clubs out with the leagues, I think, who bring value and add value to that. I think any of the clubs that have come into leagues have certainly done that, and I think there's many more underneath the league structure, but I think that's where some of the uncertainty comes from, that's where the nervousness comes from league clubs, because when clubs have dropped out of the leagues into the low league, for instance, and obviously Brecon at the Highland League, they've really struggled to get back up. Obviously Brecon are probably in a very, very strong position still, but the other clubs have really struggled, so there's a nervousness when clubs drop out, that because of the strength out with the leagues of the clubs coming through, then there's a real challenge trying to get back up, but that's what a progressive competitive pyramid system should be. But unfortunately, when the weight of vote is carried by the league clubs, then there's always going to be a challenge.
Assistant manager Simon Ferry isn't too keen on the current SPFL setup, and having sampled football south of the border, he would love to see something similar implemented here in Scotland.
I don't think it's ideal. I don't think it's perfect, let's put it that way. I thought it was a great opportunity around about COVID time, when there was teams that were kind of their futures were decided on half a seasons, where I just thought it was a complete opportunity to put, was it 16 teams into a Premier League, most other teams having, was it 14 teams into the league. I'd like to see it. I think you hear a lot of players that talk when they leave Scotland, it's kind of the same old, we're playing the same teams 3 and 4 times a season. If you get them in the cup, it could be 6 times a season. Again, having played down south, I really enjoyed the variety of it. I think we had a 2014 league, Leagues 1 and 2, going to different stadiums, only going to the same stadium once a season, and it just makes it a lot more competitive. Down south, we had kind of 12 teams that were capable of winning the league because the league was so big. So again, I think it would make it much more an exciting watch. I think it would give teams a much more an opportunity to get up as well, because you could introduce maybe 2 going up with a playoff system as well. So I think it would benefit Scottish football if we could get bigger leagues, definitely. Well, there's so many ambitious clubs at this level that are desperate to get into the league. So if there wasn't that, then you could maybe say there is a case of just keeping it as it is. But like I said, there's so many teams that are not just desperate to get in there, but they're willing to put the money behind it as well. So for me, it'd be a great thing.
Ferry feels sorry for players that are successful having won their non-league divisions that there is no immediate promotion. He too believes that reconstruction would perhaps bring greater rewards for both clubs in and out of the current SPFL setup.
For players especially, the fact that you've went over a 30-odd game season and then you need to play an extra 4 or 5 games to try and get into the league above you, where a team up there, the league above, have finished bottom and they only need to play 1 game, and the team that have actually had a successful season need to play more games to try and get into that league. It seems a bit crazy to me. I think it definitely needs to be looked at. Like I say, if it was a bigger league, you could make that the top team go up, the bottom team come down, and then the second bottom from the other league go and play each other in a playoff. I would think that would be more a justifiable scenario.
However, like the gaffer, he too would love to help the Kilby on their quest for SPFL football.
I think the club as a whole, where you see the facilities, the owner, the ambition, they're willing to put the money behind it to try and do it as well. Like I said, it could only be a good thing for Scottish football. I don't think it would matter the circumstances or the situation that me and Mick were in. We're ambitious guys, we want to do well regardless of kind of the team they're at or their situation. Of course, having speaking to the owner and how passionate he is about it, you're desperate to do well for him. And then you see the boys as well, who great set of boys. So all your kind of thoughts and reasons to be successful is for them, and then ultimately ourselves. So if you want to test yourself against ambitious clubs, ultimately it's going to be better players in that league, and testing yourself coaching wise, playing wise against better players. And like I say, I think for Scottish football as a whole, we need more teams like that, because again, you talk about the pyramid systems. I think there was far too many teams that were just happy to survive, whereas now that's not an option. I think in any league you look at now in Scotland, you need to be putting money behind it. You need to be ambitious, otherwise you'll find yourself out the leagues before you know it. And I think you see a lot of players coming through the leagues down to this level. Obviously, it's not just because of finance, but also the ambition of these clubs. So again, I look at East Kilbride, and the way I sell it to players is, for me, it'd be the best part-time club in Scotland just now. You know, when you think of finance, the ambition of the club, the style of play of the manager, the players that are here as well, the facilities. part-time football. If that's what you're looking for in part-time football, then you get every single bit of that here. Now, I've seen other clubs at part-time level that didn't offer that. I'm talking clubs in League 1, League 2. And again, not just East Kilbride, I know a lot of other Lowland League teams, junior teams that are very well run now. It's not like you're just going down to the Lowland League now and you're getting forgotten about. I think there is people that are watching this for talent. I think you see a lot of people for the Lowland League going up to the leagues as well. So I think it's a great place for people to go and play their football.
After joining the Lowland League in 2013 and previously playing in the East of Scotland Football League, it's been a long journey for the SPFL's latest newcomers, Spartans.
Spartans have always been a really ambitious club. They've always thought about the game a bit more and wanted to progress it, and want to do the best for their own community and for players around it. The chairman, Craig Graham, he probably couldn't even tell you how many meetings he's had at Hampden or with different clubs trying to lay out the reasons for it. And so many times Spartans won East of Scotland League or Lowland League, and it was that glass ceiling there. And to be fair to Spartans, they didn't lose heart. There was a few clubs that didn't lose heart where they still just kept pushing for it because they could have got really demoralised about that. But they didn't. They cared about it enough to keep pushing, and they wanted it for. They've got a youth section of more than 600 players. They want those kids to have a pathway, which you've seen now. The likes of Jamie Dishington and Blair Carswell that are in the first team, they've came all the way through like youth sections at the club. And they wanted to give the rest of the kids that are there that promotion. So they kept going back, kept having meetings, kept trying to get a body of other clubs who were non-league at the time to support it and just keep going for it. And thankfully, I think Stuart Regan and Ian Maxwell, the SFA, they were both supporters of it as well, liked the idea of it. And I think eventually, a groundswell of opinion got them that pyramid structure, but I still don't think it goes far enough, but at least they've got it started,
The City of Edinburgh hasn't had 4 Scottish Football League clubs since 1948-49, so Spartans joined 2 of the country's biggest clubs, Heart Midlothian and Hibernian, along with Edinburgh City in flying the flag for the country's capital.
I think there's some people who will say it's a negative because there's too many clubs looking for the same players in the area, but I think it's quite a positive thing because they're all at different levels, so it means that no matter what you are as a player coming through, there's somewhere to find your level, whether it's to go out on loan. There's been younger players that come, so they can go out to Edinburgh City, they can go out to Spartans. They're getting league experience before they're then maybe coming back to their parent clubs and trying to get in. So I think for Edinburgh football to have that many clubs at different levels, it means that, because a lot of people see Glasgow as the football, that's the football capital of Scotland and the rest of it doesn't really matter. But if you look at the number of clubs in Glasgow or the surrounding environs of Glasgow, I think to have that in Edinburgh as well and let football fans here know that there's a club that they can attach themselves to or go and play at or find a route into the game, I think is really important as well for the capital city to have that.
Despite the healthy representation that Edinburgh now receives within the SPFL pyramid structure, Gordon believes that ambitious clubs will ultimately be rewarded regardless of how the land lies.
Ones that have maybe dropped out of the League 2 and come down, they've had a shock at how it is, but there's also a lot of the other ones who were East of Scotland, and again it was a pub team to a certain extent for some of them. So I think this pyramid structure has allowed, whether it's ambitious junior teams, whether it's other teams coming in from West of Scotland leagues, East of Scotland, the ones that are ambitious can find a route up. The ones in the leagues at League 2 who want to stay there and want to contribute positively instead of just exist, they'll find a place still in League 2, whether it's moving up to League 1 or pushing promotion or just sitting middle of a table but still proving their worth there. I think everybody's finding their right level now. The ones who have that ambition can use it to climb. The ones who know where they are and they stay there, but the ones that are lazy, there were so many that were lazy and lacked ambition and they were actually almost leeching off of Scottish football and Scottish football fans. They're finding their level further down as well, and I think that's helpful to the game. I think it keeps the game healthy, that you've got the right people trying to move up, take that enthusiasm and ambition, because I think we need that. I think there's too much in Scottish football for a long time where it just settled for what it is, and I think Scottish football needs to be more positive, and I think the pyramid structure, ironically, is helping it from the bottom up, rather than the other way around.
However, she too believes it's bizarre that champions aren't rewarded with immediate promotions at non-league level and considers the divisions within the pyramid to be too small in size.
I still think there's work to be done in the pyramid system, and I think that's where, if you're going to have the playoff system the same as you would with the other leagues, you have to have it exactly the same so the winner of the league goes up automatically, and then have playoffs maybe underneath it if you're doing playoffs and you've only got 10 teams in a league, it's pretty brutal, it's pretty cutthroat, because you're almost always in the middle of a playoff somewhere, whether it's going down or going up, which is good and it's exciting for the fans, but for the managers, their jobs are at risk every week because of that. It means that they're scared maybe to put younger players in because every game matters. So it's about trying to find a mix of the excitement that those playoffs give, and they undoubtedly do, but also find a sort of middle ground that allows clubs to not be so fearful.
Despite acknowledging potential negatives, the Scotsman writer believes that the introduction of the SPFL structure should be considered positive due to several lower league and non-league teams' ambitions to ascend up the current pyramid.
I think it's brilliant. Again, before the pyramid structure came in, and I'm involved, I'm a fan of Spartans, so I've seen how ambitious Lowland League clubs or East of Scotland clubs even at that time were. But I think there was far too long where you had teams who were paying players at the bottom of the lower division, and pennies still. They were still collecting their pennies out the meter virtually to pay the players out a porter cabin on a Tuesday night. And you're thinking this isn't the way we should be wanting to, bolster our game. They were trying to get journeymen in. Whereas I think having all these new clubs coming in, it's forced the ones at the bottom of League Two to try and up their game, and the ones that weren't willing to do that they're finding their level below that, and it means that the ambitious clubs can come through, and it's actually setting the tone because there's more and more coming through Highland or Lowland League now who want to match that ambition and see that there is somewhere to go. Because again, before that, when there was a glass ceiling, they were kind of just sitting there thinking, well, why should we invest money because we can only go so far, whereas at the moment there's a lot of money and time and excitement, enthusiasm being invested in the game at the lower levels.
But she believes that the primary flaw within League 2 is the protection of the team that finishes bottom, who plays the winner of the Highland versus Lowland League champions playoff in a two-legged tie as its ultimately rewarding failure.
We were all, and we still are, we're protecting the bottom club, which usually is the one that isn't that ambitious, isn't putting things into it, so we're almost protecting somebody that isn't that helpful to Scottish football and punishing clubs that are positive and wanting to go back up. And that affects Brecon at the moment as well, because they were one of the clubs that they were maybe resting on laurels and thought they were safe where they were. They've come down and realised that, you know what, you need to actually put something into this, you need to reinvest, you need to aim higher, and they've done that. And obviously they lost out last year to Spartans, but are now top of the Highland League again. I think they'll just, they realise the importance of getting back in there and investing in their club instead of just sitting there enjoying the fact that they can go to somewhere where their SFA blazer on and enjoy being somebody.
After the possibility of league reconstruction was dismissed, the experienced journalist believes that a lack of television interest and clubs acting within their own self-interest were the key aspects as to why league reconstruction fell through.
I think self-preservation, I think a lot of people were panicking at that stage. They were wondering whether they were going to keep their clubs, be able to keep them going. And I think they thought if they messed anything up, that TV company might pull the deal. They thought TV would be the only money coming in throughout that period because there wouldn't be money through the gates. There wouldn't be the same hospitality or sponsorship. And I think they panicked and thought, we just want to safeguard this TV deal at all costs. And it was about self-preservation. If the teams that were maybe in danger of being demoted at that point were more in favour of looking at something, whereas the ones that were safe just wanted to basically put their tin hat on and see themselves through the pandemic.
Borehrig Rose were promoted into the Lowland League in 2019 after winning the East of Scotland Football League and gaining SFA membership. After finishing second and third in their first two seasons, both of which were curtailed by the COVID-19 pandemic, they went on to win the league title in 2021-22 and defeated Cowdenbeath to take the Blue Brazils' place in Scottish League 2 via the playoffs.
It was chaotic, it was magical, and it was all worth it in the end. It really took time, but I think the best things in life are the ones that are that you've had to work hard for and you've had to wait a little while for. There was that period that Rose decided that that they wanted to make the move out of junior football and move into the East of Scotland leagues and then get into the Lowland League, obviously with that goal of making it up into the big leagues. They decided to have a good pop at that just as coronavirus hit as well, which is very typical of a place like this. And they were on track for doing so in one of the curtailed seasons, but the season finished. The last game they actually played was against Dundee in the Scottish Cup, and that was in the January, and then football was ended effectively at that level. I think if if Rose had that sort of period of time, it might have happened that season. They never actually faced Kelty Hearts that season. The way that it ended up, I think there was maybe called off games and whatnot, but they were certainly still toe to toe with Kelty. But that season curtailed, obviously. Kelty went up, and then all eyes were on Rose the following season. The pressure really was from out with on Rose at least finishing top. They'd done so on absolute canter. Rose went down to Berwick Rangers, and that top spot was sealed. So it wasn't obviously the promotion or anything, but it was the fact, right, you're going to be champions. You're going to go and face obviously the eventual Highland League winners, which were Fraserburgh that year. And it was just incredible. Even now, it's still really hard to put into words because it means so much to these people. It means so much to the fans in the stand, the people in the boardroom. It is a really, really special club, and I know people here really keep pumping that. But until you actually come and you spend even just 90 minutes at this ground, you understand how much that means to these people. It's fairly well documented that the chairman and the former treasurer came in, and this club were 30 minutes away from dying. That was such the state they were in just a decade ago now, just over a decade ago rather. So the fact that they've managed to do that, the ambition was always to try and get into the top leagues, and to do so the way that we did, or they did rather, against Cowdenbeath, and managed to do it at actually a bit of a breeze. I think, I would love to meet somebody that doesn't think that Bonner Rose have been a good addition into the SPFL, and I think the same could be said about Kelty and Cove and Edinburgh City. Every club's brought a little something, but with a little bit of a bias. I think this club's brought the most because it's the organic and the authentic way that Bonner Rose have done it. They don't have a big bank or a big powerhouse of money sitting behind them, and they've done it the hard way, and I think they've effectively done it the right way.
The Rosie Posey ought to be considered one of the more ambitious clubs in Scottish lower league football.
Oh, it's tremendous. When Cove managed to work their way up to the Championship, that's the dream of any club that are still sort of swirling around in the Lowland League, the Highland League. You only need to look at East Kilbride and you see the amount of money that they put into things, the amount of players that they're able to bring in. They're really going for it. Rose don't just want to be sitting about in League Two right now. I think that's probably okay, and I think many would probably just bite your hand off it right now if they knew that League Two would certainly be where they were playing their football next year. But not just here to participate and to make up the numbers. This is the way that Scottish football certainly hopes to be. These clubs hope that Scottish football is going to be turning into that. These clubs that really have the fan base at their hearts, at their crux, that have a lot of ambition. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's certainly two clubs that have been swirling around there forever, right? You just look at the league leaders right now, Stenhousemuir. They've never been promoted. They've never won a championship, rather. They've never been promoted through winning a championship. So this is their first time. Rose have won many a championship. Steny have had that ambition this year, but how long it's taken them to have that ambition. Rose have always had that. Kelty had that. Cove had that. And Edinburgh City did as well. I think it's the ambition that these clubs have that is the biggest asset for sure.
Having worked at the Rosie Posey when the coronavirus pandemic hit, Canavan believes that the SPFL did the right thing when not rushing into any form of potential league reconstruction, even if she'd like to see some alterations in the future.
I think that it was a tricky time, and I understand perhaps why people thought that this was the best time to do it, but I think it's a massive decision to make, and to maybe just do it at the flick of a switch would have been quite tricky. I think you need to take into the consideration now. Remember how challenging the coronavirus period was. Nobody really knew when football was going to return or anything like that. So as much as perhaps now it looks easy that was the time to maybe take stock and change things up a little bit, I think it was more just about, right, how do we get our game back? And I think adding that stress onto what already was a really, really tricky period. I understand the fans' perspective, but I think logistically it was a really, really tricky time. And adding in everything that would included, we were talking about if, even championship clubs, League One clubs, would they survive, never mind League Two clubs. So I think it would just be a really tough time to go through a reconstruction when you don't even know which sort of clubs. Thankfully everyone did survive it, but there was real genuine concern that many wouldn't. When the pyramid all sort of came into action, and it was, you couldn't simply just finish the bottom of League Two and think that you're going to be okay. You know, in any sport, how is that all right? You know, you're sort of you can be the worst sort of the worst performer, and you're still not effectively being rewarded, but you're not being punished for it. There has to be a bit of a price to be paid if you're effectively finishing bottom. And I think for too long, too many clubs got away with that. And I think you can see that the fact that every club that has went down through the pyramid and through Club 42 and through the playoffs, they've never come back up, and none of them have looked anything like coming back up. You know, East Stirlingshire are doing very well just to remain in the Lowland League. Cowdenbeath have done absolutely nothing since Bonnyrigg put them down there. Berwick Rangers have probably been the brightest spark out of the lot. In the Lowland League, Brecon City up top, in the Highlands League, they're always still fighting there and thereabouts, but no side have went back down and automatically bounced back up. I think you're always favouring the sides that have that ambition, you know, Trinent, East Kilbride, Buckie Thistle up north. That's where I think the enthusiasm is. You're effectively got, it's the situation with any player. You know, one side are in the doldrums and the other side are on the up. So you're always going to have to fancy the one that are looking up rather than looking down.
Despite reminiscing positively about her time with Bonnyrigg Rose, the BBC journalist also believes that the pyramid system is somewhat flawed when you consider that league winners aren't immediately rewarded with promotion.
Absolutely. You know, you win a league and then you have to still play 2 more games. You might even have to still play 4 more games if you really want to do it. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is ludicrous. You know, the season that Bonnyrigg Rose went up, Fraserburgh had an equally impressive Highland League campaign. You know, if you're winning a very, very competitive league, which the Lowland League and the Highland League are, that has to be where that's where the reward is. And I think that's what I mean, that there should be more promotion relegation, and it works in the Highland League and the Lowland League. I think it should work the same in League 2 and League 1 and the Championship, and getting up and getting down. That you should always be in favour of the underdog, so to speak. And I think that if you're having such a successful campaign, that essentially if you're winning the league, you absolutely should be up. But if you're also finishing second, I think the sort of onus should be on the league and the governing bodies supporting them, rather than trying to protect those that, you know, are still mulling around in the division and are maybe only second last because the side that were last were absolutely awful, kind of thing. But the one thing that I think that the pyramid system has been positive in that aspect, you know, and allowing clubs like Rose and whatnot up, but it shouldn't be. It's still to a degree a closed door. It's not as closed as it was, but the Highland League and the Lowland League champions absolutely should be going right up at the moment that they win the league.
Founded in October 1882, Albion Rovers joined the Scottish Football League in 1903 and maintained that membership up until they were relegated in 2022-23.
These problems are chronic. They don't happen over a season or two. Albion Rovers is sitting in a catchment area where buses fly out there to Celtic and Rangers, you know. They're sitting there historically, and we're talking for a long time now, that the support have been in the hundreds. Very loyal support, by the way, and very, you know, if you go along there and talk to people, very committed support. But you're dealing in a place where over the years, it is just, there's been no real investment. If you go along to Clifton Hill now, you'll see that. You know, it's a brilliant stadium, old-fashioned stadium, but has its wear and tears about it. And there's no huge investment. Now, behind the scenes there is a lot of talk and discussions about how they're very good and able support there that want to raise it back up to what it once was, but it's hugely difficult. It really is hugely difficult.
Having previously won the 4th tier as recently as 2014-15, it's been a decade of decline from the club from Coatbridge, who play here at Clifton Hill Stadium.
It's not to say it can't be done. It can be revived, but it is hugely difficult. And coming down to the Lowland League, it's no surprise that they're struggling in the Lowland League, because the Lowland League's a good league, and you know that by every team that has come out of the Lowland League and got in to the SPFL has stayed there. Now there is a route up. Now, amongst that route is very straightened and very tight, and very difficult to get in. And again, it's because people are not going to vote for a system that automatically gets them out of the league, like out of the SPFL. So it's quite a tight structure to get them in. It's quite a difficult thing to do. For example, the Lowland League club has to win the Lowland League, which is a tough league. Then they have to play the winners of the Highland League, which again is a very competitive league. Then they've got to play the bottom team in the SPFL. So it's not a straightforward thing.
Having now entered the unfamiliar territory of non-league football, the Wee Rovers are the perfect case study to show that SPFL status should not be taken for granted.
But the great story at the bottom of the pyramid is that there's clubs with great resource, great energy and great ambition, and always had that. I mean, so people have underestimated just what has been fomenting underneath the SPFL. They've been underestimating the resources of these teams, underestimating what they want to do, underestimating the sustainability of these clubs. Then they meet clubs at the bottom of the SPFL who, you know, the clubs that have gone down have been struggling for years. I mean, Cowdenbeath were in playoffs for many years before they eventually dropped through the trapdoor. Albion Rovers, the same. East Stirlingshire, the same. Berwick Rangers, the same. There's a theme here. And that's the reason they can't get back up, because their problems have been chronic. You know, their problems have been, you know, long-standing. Whereas the teams in the bottom tiers, from Lowland League into West of Scotland and into East of Scotland, a lot of them not only are community clubs, so they have great footfall from boys' clubs and girls' clubs now, but they also have fully functioning committees, fully functioning social clubs. You know, they have resources, and these are really strong clubs with strong histories, with strong backers. You know, I mean, it's not any surprise that they are now, you know, in the long term, eyeing the SPFL. Not at all. And then when you go further down the pyramid, if you look at particularly in the West of Scotland leagues, if you look at the likes of Auchinleck, Pollock, Cumnock, etc., amongst others, they've got very good resources as well, and they will be the next wave.
It's tough to break in, but once they're there, ambitious clubs don't intend on merely making up the numbers. They are intent on changing the landscape of Scottish football.
Good afternoon. Health experts have warned that they have seen a rise in preventable illnesses following an outbreak of whooping cough. Our reporter Liv Thompson has more.
Whooping cough, also known as pertussis, has been on the rise across Scotland for much of the winter period. The extreme cough and debilitating symptoms often leave patients exhausted and even hospitalised. Doctors often treat the infectious whooping cough disease with antibiotics, but Kyle, who had the illness this year, felt unsupported by medical professionals.
I tried to get in touch with the doctors about it. They didn't much care for the situation. They kind of just prescribed me to do the usuals, like drink the cough syrup, take the antibiotics that they would usually give out for other colds and things like that. But it's not the same as another cold. I wouldn't say it feels like all the worst symptoms of a cold constantly all the time.
Vaccination is the best protection against whooping cough. Public Health Scotland have also said that vaccines are important to reduce transmission of diseases throughout society. Gail, an intensive care nurse, has recently treated preventable diseases such as TB.
They had to be nursed in isolation and PPE had to be worn when attending to their needs. Public Health had also to be notified. Also, every year I look after patients who have flu. There are flu vaccines that are available every year.
I asked Kyle if he thinks vaccinations are important.
The importance of them, I think, has been more highlighted through COVID-19 and all that. Even though people have become sceptical now, like one of my mates' dads he stopped taking his flu vaccine, and it was a year or so after he stopped taking it, he started having constant flus all the time. He was never not sick, which I think it speaks to, if you're taking something and then all the scepticism that's come out about the COVID vaccines and all that. People have been very sceptical what's in them, but it's the proof's there.
Vaccine efficacy in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic is on other people's minds too.
I just think I've got 3. I actually think one of them was actually so I could go on holiday as well. I think I've had COVID a few times now. That really protected. It's not stopped me from getting it, so I'm just gonna. If I need it, I'll get it, but I'm not that bothered about doing it for my protection.
Joining us now in the studio, UWS reporter Carla Basu. Welcome, Carla. So what is the public's opinion of COVID vaccines nowadays?
Well, Amanda, there is a very varied attitude towards vaccines in general nowadays since the COVID-19 pandemic. This is possibly due to the mistrust in the government, and this has in some ways made many members of the public hesitant to receive other vaccines.
And within the UK, is there a significant drop in people receiving vaccinations?
Well, in 2022, it was reported that 9 out of 10 people have received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, and around 7 out of 10 have received 3 doses of the same vaccine. However, in 2023, it was reported that around 80% of the public who could have possibly received their COVID booster haven't actually received it.
And have there been any reports of side effects since the rollout of these vaccines?
Well, most of the side effects of the COVID vaccinations reported by NHS are said to be mild and should not last longer than a week, although the number of whooping cough cases have begun to rise in the UK over the past year, with people beginning to link their concerns to the COVID vaccine.
And if there are people experiencing whooping cough, who should they contact for help?
Well, especially for babies under the age of 6 months, a whooping cough can be dangerous, yet for older children and adults, the symptoms are less severe. If your young child is suffering from this type of cough, immediately call 999, or if you have an older child or yourself, you are an adult, contact your GP for an appointment or call NHS on 111.
Thank you, Carla. Now with a focus on hospitality. As venues continue to close in record levels across the UK, musicians and venue owners alike are concerned about the future for up-and-coming artists. Our reporter Johnny Little has more.
The 1975 represent a legacy of British bands produced by touring the grassroots scene and then the world. But with the impact of venue closures, there is concern for the next generation of musicians. Ben Troy, a member of the Glasgow band Cloaks, echoes these concerns.
I mean, it's definitely not good right now. There's not a lot of money in it. I mean, it's quite a pessimistic outlook, but I think this could be it for like bands. Not that there's never going to be big bands, but that Coldplay are probably the last ever like mega star band. But when you're playing 2,000 to 8,000 capacity venues, something round about that, you're almost operating at a loss.
Although 125 grassroots music venues closed in the last year, Glasgow-based venue Strip Joint has managed to maintain success through diversification. By forming strong relationships with local bands and by selling records within the venue, Rory Hughes, the manager of the establishment, has kept the venue going strong.
Well, we keep a kind of good relationship with local bands and local artists. Obviously having the record store in here helps massively, so if they are looking to promote anything, we can get signed copies of the album in. Get 2 different things for 2 different animals that combine to be one great beast, I think is the best way to put it. Very, very popular venue. We're very dependent on the Hydro, which is down the road, which is obviously the biggest venue in Glasgow, or well, the biggest non-stadium venue in Glasgow. And anything that's on at the Hydro, we feed from humongously.
Though some venues are succeeding, business lecturer and long-time touring musician Hugh Stewart is not confident in the future looming for the next generation of British musicians.
Well, the thing is that the music industry, on the one hand, is making huge amounts of money. There's people at the top who are coining it in, but these are tending to be legacy musicians, as you see these days. But at the grassroots, there's less and less money. And the problem that bands are finding in Britain anyway is that The pubs are closing, venues are closing. For the people who've been in the business for 40, 50 years and they've got all those album sales to fall back on, they're doing okay. But how do people get started now? It's very, very difficult.
With us in the studio now is Jonathan Little. Welcome, Johnny. There is obviously a concern for how viable it is for artists to thrive with the closure of local venues. Just how detrimental is this to creatives on a local level?
Well, Amanda, on a local level, the local scene is where artists are able to grow commercial viability and potentially take that touring across the UK and indeed the world. And as more and more venues close, this scene where bands can build that foundation sort of disappears, and this has led to over 190,000 gigs being cancelled in the last year due to the closures.
And with the loss of gigs in venues, how does that impact the future of music, the music scene in UK and Glasgow?
The concern comes at both sort of an economic and a cultural level. The UK music scene basically brings in around £4 billion a year for the economy, but with venue closures there has been over 4,000 jobs lost and 14,000 gigs that just simply couldn't take place as a result of that. And then on a cultural level, Britain is known for producing some of the greatest bands of all time, and there's fears that due to these closures there won't be another Coldplay and there won't be another Oasis.
And what are the issues what are the issues forcing venues to shut down, which of course then impacts these creatives?
Well, at this point, one grassroots venue is shutting every week in the UK, and this comes to rent increasing across the UK, the cost of living crisis preventing customers from able to buy tickets or purchase goods from venue owners, and the lasting impact of COVID on people's social decisions. And most consequentially, it's taken something that was at one point the only real way an artist could make money from their craft and has removed that from the revenue stream.
And what are the measures that artists and club and pub owners are hoping to take in order to combat these issues?
Well, economically, things are obviously tight across the board, and I think the creative industry has kind of been by the wayside in that way. But any remedy to these issues will come in the form of government support in terms of grants and bursaries for creatives and tax relief for venue owners, and that could do a lot to steer the ship in the right direction.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now for a roundup of today's other top news stories. As the summer nears, the time for relaxation and holidays beckons for many Scots. Whether it be for yourself, family or friends, the summer season is a busy one. Unsure of where to go? Last year, top destinations for Scots included Spain, Greece, Turkey and Portugal. Flight attendant Kelsey Henderson told UWS what the most popular holiday destinations were for the summer 2024.
This year, I think Mallorca will still be the top destination that families go to. It's really cheap, it's close, especially for people that don't like flying. It is only an hour from London or 2 hours from Aberdeen, so it's not too bad for people that don't like flying. I also think that Antalya in Turkey will pick up. I think a lot more people are noticing the beauty of Antalya, so I think a lot more people will go there this year.
This week marks International Cleaning Week, launched by the Worldwide Cleaning Association, ISSA. It follows the Great British Spring Clean, which aims to take litter off the streets and provide a cleaner environment for everyone. Last year, nearly 500,000 bags were picked up and pledged to the cause. Research has also shown that cleaning can have a positive impact on mental health as well as the environment. And finally, children are in for an Easter treat if they sign up to the holiday coaching event by the John Sutton Community Club. They will benefit from coaching sessions from John Sutton himself. And that's all for today. You've been watching UWS News with Amanda Crawford. See you next time. NHS Scotland's 14 health boards currently operate with around 12 different systems. But that will change as part of fresh plans to integrate the current systems to improve information sharing across the service. Patients and junior doctors attending Rare Aware, a conference about rare diseases at the weekend, heard from Dr Martina Roddy, who also chairs the Rare Disease Implementation Board at the Scottish Government.
An area of sort of particular interest to me is future care planning, and we're working alongside the team that are developing that, and that's looking at developing resources for everyone, not just patients with rare conditions, but resources where we'll be able to make something like a care summary or a digital passport.
The details will be released in an update on the Scottish Government's Rare Disease Action Plan sometime in the summer, and it's hoped it will improve patient care. 26-year-old Chloe Mezzetti was diagnosed with Addison's adrenal disease after being struck by a sudden onset of severe symptoms in November 2020. She said a simple blood pressure test could have detected it much sooner.
I spoke to 2 different GPs over the phone and also paid to see a private doctor, but unfortunately all of my symptoms were missed at first. It eventually took one of my mum's close friends to recognise the symptoms that I had at the time, which included nausea and vomiting, weight loss, no appetite, exhaustion, muscle weakness, and I also had increased skin pigmentation too.
RareAware Glasgow was launched by medical students at the University of Glasgow in 2021. The organisation aims to break down barriers between patients, families and professionals. Chloe now works with Addison's self-help group and helps others seek support and navigate services. She was delighted by the news that NHS Scotland would work towards a joined-up approach to care.
And it's very, very disjointed at the moment, so I think having a central sort of network to bring all the information together would be invaluable.
Hello everyone and welcome to UWS News. Today is Friday, November the 10th, and I'm Anna Konovalenko, leading you through the main news of the week. Our lead story today. People commented that countless fireworks on Halloween and bonfire nights were quite unsettling. This year, some used fireworks as a weapon, aiming it at windows and cars. A Southside resident in Glasgow filmed a group of people setting off fireworks in the middle of the street. He shared a video on X, also known as Twitter, calling out the Scottish police for not stepping up. Second year in a row, Northern Lights are seen on the west coast of Scotland. On the night of November 6th, people were able to catch a glimpse of Northern Lights on the outskirts of Glasgow. To the international news. Following the G7 meeting in Japan, the leaders discussed Israel-Gaza war, Russian invasion in Ukraine, as well as emphasized that they are ready to establish positive and steady relationship with China. UK's government will put India and Georgia on the list of safe places to return people who came here illegally. Ukrainian government extended martial law for another 90 days, till February 14th next year. A spa hotel in Iceland is closing for a week out of fear of volcano eruption. All guests were asked to leave the place until further notice. To the innovative sector. Foot ulcer is a very popular disease among diabetics. Often, it can lead to amputation if misdiagnosed. UK's National Physical Laboratory developed a new thermal imaging technology. It scans the whole foot surface within seconds, helping to diagnose and prevent ulcer. And right now, dogs attacks in United Kingdom have been one of the biggest taking points over the next couple of months. Joining me live in studio is Sean Boyle talking about this issue. Hello, Sean.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Sean, why is there so much controversy around this topic?
Well, I think it affects a lot of people, you know, dog owners who have XL bullies in this case, who are the case in question, and obviously victims of dog attacks, so it affects a lot of people.
Okay, and will it be a criminal offence to own an XL bully?
It will, February 1st, 2024. But owners can apply for an exemption up until the 31st of January 2024.
Okay, and who are the people who think that dog ownership is a problem?
Well, there have been researchers, for example, from Nottingham Trent University, who have found that dog ownership is actually a bigger part to play other than the breeds. So if trainers and if their owners can get their dogs better behaved and have more better social behaviour for dogs, that can be a treatment to reduce dog attacks.
Okay, we'll hope we'll see what's happened next. Thank you for the update. And finishing up, this afternoon, UWS Air Campus hosts another film viewing. This week you can learn about mockumentaries on the examples of Man Bites Dog and Punishment Park. Grab your snacks and join everyone in Lecture Theatre 2 at 2 p.m. Thank you for staying with us. It was Anna Konovalenko, UWS News. Air.